A rare fall heat dome is set to build across the United States over the next several days. This comes as the weather pattern will also likely get more active as air masses begin to clash. This video will provide the latest updates on USA weather. Thank you for joining me in the first video of October right here on the channel. I want to start this update with a look at what will be going on in the atmosphere and how that will dictate the surface pattern in the coming days. Starting out with the playthrough into the Friday, October 3rd time frame. Can you see a common color over a lot of the screen? I certainly can. That is oranges and reds, and those are indicative of a northbound push in the jet stream that is unusual for this time of the year. This jet stream ridge that will move all the way up into Canada will allow for surface conditions to be warmer than average in terms of temperatures. We will be seeing 70s and 80s for highs over a lot of the central and eastern U.S., much further north than they should be in the first few days of a month like October. Nighttime lows will be in the 50s and 60s and even near 70, much further north than they should be as well. And that general trend will continue as we see the anomalous ridging still going on in the atmosphere, even as we start next week. A big trend you can see entering up against that ridge, though, that is a trough or a anomalous dip in the jet stream. That's indicated by those blue colors that this model is showing coming in from the western U.S. As we see a dip in the polar jet stream sliding in through parts of the Rockies and the Intermountain West, that is going to result in some cooler than average temperatures there. It will also create an air mass clash that will occur over a lot of the U.S. even as we go through parts of next week. That will likely result in active weather in the form of some storm systems. Those will produce surface showers and some even thunderous conditions. Certainly stick around deeper into the video for a look at how active weather will expand. For now, let's dive deeper into a look at the temperature trends expected across the country in the coming days. Here's a look at the trends expected specifically into this weekend from Friday through Sunday. Notice the big color scheme across a lot of the nation. That is going to be yellows, oranges, reds, pinks, and maroons. Especially as you get into the north central U.S., that is where temperatures are expected to be the furthest above average this weekend. We could see some numbers 20, 25, 30 degrees above where we should be for October 3rd, 4th, and 5th in places like the Dakotas and Minnesota. As that jet stream ridge persists into next week, we will likely see more warmer than average temperatures over a broad span of the country, from parts of the south central U.S. all the way to the Great Lakes. That's where you should expect temperatures to be the furthest above average from Sunday, October 5th through Tuesday, October 7th. Also notice what will be pushing against that from the west by that point in time. That's that cooler air mass coming in with that dip in the jet stream, especially Nevada, Utah, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. That's where temperatures could be around 10 to 15 degrees below average into the early part of next week. With that being said, let's track out the daily high temperatures expected across the U.S. in the coming days. That will help in visualizing what those anomalies will look like with actual temperatures. I can tell you, it is going to be downright hot. In Texas, it will be 91 to 95 degrees on Friday. It will also be 90-ish degrees as you go all the way up to Nebraska, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, over into parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes. Those boxes in the northern U.S. region indicate where record highs are anticipated to be broken. We'll do it again in a lot of those same states on Saturday as that big jet stream ridge continues to allow for these surface anomalies. This entire zone I'm circling over the north central U.S. will be looking at more 85 to 90 degree readings. The morning lows will only be around 65 to 70 degrees on a day like Saturday, October 4th as well. It will also be warmer than average up a lot of the East Coast, but after a recent backdoor cold front, it will still be down to around 79, 80 degrees as far south as the Carolinas for highs on Saturday. That is actually cooler than what we're going to be seeing in Minneapolis, Minnesota by about 10 degrees. That is crazy to say, especially with the latitude difference between those two locations. Even as we go into Sunday, it will be cooler on the southeast coast of the U.S. than it will be in some parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. You can see that cool down and that dip in the jet stream that will be prominent in the west by the time we get towards the end of this weekend, though. A lot of the valleys of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and even the Dakotas will be down into the 50s and 40s even for highs. We'll see some of the higher elevations even cooler than that. Lots of 60s and 70s will also be prominent as you go further south into valleys of California, southern Nevada, northern Arizona, and southern Utah around that time. That cooler anomaly will continue to expand over a lot of the north central U.S. Relief will be in the form of 50s and 60s for highs by Monday, October 6th over that region. Further south, though, we will still have a big warm anomaly going on. Even as you get up into parts of the northeast U.S., it will be around 80 degrees on Monday, October 6th. That is warmer than average. With the temperature discussions in mind, let's now pivot to the active weather that will likely be caused by temperature clashes as the jet stream dives into parts of the U.S. Starting out into the Friday time frame, you'll note that there will not be much action just yet over much of the country. A lingering front will be bringing some rain around Florida. Eventually, some low pressure could form there. That'll become important in just a minute. Also note precipitation will be going on into some parts of the west as we begin to see jet stream energy and surface low pressure moving through places like California, Nevada, Oregon, and into Idaho as well. Some of the storms we get in the lower elevations there on Friday and then in points further east on Saturday could be on the stronger side. Overall, though, we'll just see some rain, mountain snow, and gusty wind pushing through as low pressure does just that into the Saturday time frame as well. Eventually, we're going to get that surface low pressure riding along the jet stream to move into the temperature clash zone in the north central plains. As we see low pressure taking a trek just like this, we will get some heavier rain, especially riding around it and on its backside. That means eastern Montana, eastern Wyoming, through parts of the Dakotas, and up into Minnesota will be very active as we go through Saturday night and then into Sunday at the minimum. Around that same time, a lot of the rest of the U.S. will still be dry, but we will be watching a low pressure continuing to organize and elevating a flood threat over parts of Florida and southern Georgia. Once we get through the late day time frame on Sunday is when the weather will begin to get active over more zones. That is when we will see the low pressure that will have been in the Dakotas earlier on Sunday, pushing up into parts of central and eastern Canada. It will be draping a front along though, and that will be a focal spot where we get showers and storms to begin to increase in coverage from parts of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan through Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. That's where we could get some showers and storms to develop, especially Sunday night. We will also be seeing storms starting to expand over parts of the southeast U.S. in association with that developing low pressure system near the Florida coast. Overall, we're going to begin to see that Midwest and North Central U.S. front moving east out of Monday, and then as we go towards Tuesday, we will also see the moisture from the Southeast U.S. starting to get pulled up towards that front. I think that's going to mean for messy weather, kind of clashing as we see air masses clashing and systems clashing over a lot of these central and eastern U.S. by Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't think it's going to cause flooding for many zones, but it will result in at least scattered showers and storms on Tuesday and Wednesday, particularly in parts of the eastern third of the U.S. For example, even as we go towards the Wednesday afternoon and evening time frame, from the Carolinas up the East Coast, there is already a strong signal for some heavier downpours. It definitely looks like a pattern to watch, at least in terms of disruptions to any outdoor plans. I do think by late next week we will see some drier conditions expanding over a lot of the country once again, though. Here's a graphic I've made to illustrate the progression of active weather expected through Wednesday, October 8th. Just because you're not in a shaded region on the screen, that doesn't mean that there will not be rain in your area. The heavier precipitation will likely be in the colored zones, though, and the first one is in the green shade there, from parts of California, Oregon, and Nevada, eventually through the Mountain West and then to the north central plains. That's where you will be on the north side of that low pressure that will ride the jet stream. That's going to happen out of Friday through Saturday into Sunday and possibly early Monday, resulting in some possible flooding concerns. Eventually, we will see the front get draped out below that low pressure system as it rides out into Canada. That will produce a boundary that will mean rainfall, especially over the nation's midsection and into the Midwest and Great Lakes. That will be Monday into Tuesday at least. Eventually, we'll see rainfall from Florida and surrounding states beginning to expand northward with the low pressure system there as it moves towards that front further north. Overall, that will create a lot of convergence over the eastern U.S., and that means active times there into the middle of next week. With that being said, that brings me towards the end of this video where I'd like to recap the headlines I just discussed. Number one, of course, is that well above normal temperatures will surge across the United States this weekend. This is basically a fall heat dome type setup where numbers could reach 15 to 30 degrees past average. That's particularly going to be at least in the north central U.S. An increasingly active weather pattern is likely into next week as well. That will be as multiple energy areas begin to interact. The jet stream will be moving in from the west. We'll see that low pressure system coming up from the southeast coast. Those will converge over some parts of the eastern U.S., and all of that will create active weather. Big cooldowns by mid-October? That's a question that I think deserves discussion in the next video, so make sure you're staying tuned for that. Make sure that you do subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell for more accurate videos as well as YouTube shorts on the weather in the future. Also, check out the site that I get many of my model maps that you see from. That is Weatherbell. There is a free trial link to Weatherbell down in the description. Thank you for watching, and God bless.
One Nation Weather.
By the way, you're still here? Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Or I'd like to remind you that if you haven't already, you should check out my winter forecast. I'll put a link to it on the screen right here. It'll also be in the description.
One nation weather.